Hello and welcome to SpotLight. It's the podcast that lifts the curtain on life at Wolverhampton Grand Theatre. I'm Scott.
And I'm Tonia. And our guest today is Jason Merrells.
Hello.
Come on.
Hiya.
Hi, Jason.
Oh, Jason, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today. We're actually at Malvern Theatre at the moment on the set of 12 Angry Men, which of course is coming to us very soon in Wolverhampton. But for you, it's going to be the third time the fourth time that you are going to be in Wolverhampton. So let's talk about those previous three times. One of those was, of course, with 12 Angry Men before, but then you've also been there with some Shakespeare.
Yeah, the first time would have been with the Comedy of Errors,
Oh,
I
okay.
believe, at the RSC, and then I did a tour of Measure for Measure, another Shakespeare play with Thelma Holt Productions, which came there, and then I did this play, the first time in 2015. So yeah, it will be my fourth time.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah.
So how long ago was that? 10 years ago?
Yeah, just about.
Nearly-
9-10 years.
Just about,
Nearly-
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, go on,
It's
go on.
about time. It's
Yeah.
due. It's due, I guess, that this play comes back round. But what memories, if any, do you have of the Grand Theatre and the theatre itself?
It's a wonderful theatre, and I've always enjoyed every time we've been there. Funnily enough, I've always stayed at Diggs, which was quite a famous theatrical Diggs, which was like a Tudor castle just outside
Yes,
Wolverhampton.
I've heard of it, yeah.
And I believe that's no longer
No,
I
that's
think
why.
so.
Diggs, but all the last three times I played there, we always stayed at that place. So I've got very fond memories of both the theatre and messing around in that old barn of a place, which was quite a magical place to stay while you're doing it, you know.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but apparently
I can't either, no, sorry.
Apparently a bit haunted.
Yeah, yeah, it's very old. Yeah.
And it's because it's no longer Diggs then.
I don't know. Unfortunately, I think it's just it's changed hands or something, and it's no longer used for that. I think it's still there, but I don't think it's Diggs anymore. Yeah.
So before we get into 12 Angry Men, which is why we're here, just tell us a little bit, because we know you in lots of other things, you know, not just for theatre, but for TV as well. So Casualty, and you know, there's a few. So tell us a little. That's how I recognize you. That's what I'm telling you. So tell us a little bit about, you know, the work that you've done on screen, and because I think our viewers and our listeners they'll like to know a little bit more about that.
You know, I'm a bit like Michael, similar age, probably a bit older than Michael, but you know, 30 years in the business, so I've been around the block and done a few things. But I started out from art school. I went to art school, didn't go to drama school. Got a grant for art school, came out of art school already doing plays and thinking, well, maybe I should go to a drama school, but then I wouldn't have got another grant and I couldn't have afforded it. So I didn't do that, and I started doing fringe work and devised stuff, going to Edinburgh, did a one-man show that I toured around, which got me an agent and stuff like that. So I was very front-footed, kind of devising stuff. That was my training, if you like. And then I got a big break, which was Casualty in the mid-90s, and that changed everything, because a bit like Michael was saying earlier about the audience figures for those early jobs were so much bigger than audience figures are now, because there's so much content and there's so many different platforms and whatever. But in those days, you know, Casualty would get 14 million viewers every Saturday night. You know, so
it was a different beast then.
Yeah. And the actors that were coming into it every week, it was just a kind of roll call of the whole industry. So it was a brilliant place to start camera work.
Yeah.
You know, I learnt a lot, and so then I did after that. I did another couple of theatre tours. I did Cheap by Jowl. Then I did Clocking Off in Manchester. Started this run of work, Queer as Folk, Cutting It. I did the first 3 series of Waterloo Road, which has just come back. Lots of other stuff, really. I was in Emmerdale for a while, nearly 10 years ago now. So yeah, and for the last few years, I've been in a show called Agatha Raisin, which is a kind of comedy detective show. So yeah, fair bit of stuff.
And how the role in Agatha Raisin, like what role are you playing?
I play a guy called Charles Fraith, who's like a bit of a playboy puppy. really should know better because, but behaves like he's a bit of a kid and attaches himself to Agatha as she's investigating very silly murders, really.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite fun. Matthew Horn, Jamie Glover.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. And then I guess on the, it's a nice segue there,
Yes.
murder, into the reason why we're here now, because of course there has been a murder.
Yes.
And there's, we've got to reach a decision, a unanimous one, I guess, in this piece.
Has
12
to be
Angry Men.
unanimous, yeah.
Yes, it
Has
has
to
be
be.
unanimous.
I want to know before we
Go
find
on,
out.
go on.
I want to know what number juror are you before?
So I'm play Juror 8.
So you.
Yeah. So I play originally played by Henry Fonda in the film.
Yes.
No pressure. But yeah, so Juror 8 comes into the situation with doubt, with questions.
Yes.
And his point is that he doesn't know. Everyone seems very certain that the boy's guilty. He doesn't know. He's not certain at all. He's not certain that he's innocent. But he has enough questions to say, I don't think we should just roll this through. We need to talk about this. There are certain things that the case didn't bring up. There are certain worries that he has individually about some of the things that were said that didn't quite make sense to him. So he starts this process of questioning the evidence, and they reluctantly become involved because initially, as Michael hinted at, they all just want to get off. But he persuades a few of them one by one that there's enough doubt that they can keep talking, and slowly the balance of arguments begins to change. So yeah, that's his character really. That's who he is. That's all we're given. We know that he's an architect.
Yeah.
So that to me opens a door of sort of imagination into what kind of man he is, because architects are academics. They train for something like 7 years. I don't think it was any different then than it is now. So it's a very long period of
Long process
study.
to train.
So they're meticulous. Everything has to be quite, well wrought. Nothing's vague about being an architect. It's you have to be millimeter perfect in your calculations, etc. So I think he's someone that's fastidious. He's an academic. I think he lives in New York. I think he's a liberal, very probably. I imagine he listens to Charlie Parker, Bebop, Thelonious Monk.
Yeah.
And I that's how I imagine him. And so I think he's someone that was very aware of the civil rights movement that was kicking off in the rest of America. And I think that the kid on trial is Puerto Rican from Spanish Harlem. That's not stated in the play, but it is what the writer intended.
Yeah.
So I think...
Which I think is important, really, in terms of the stakes. So carry on.
You'll see when you come and see it. I hope that there's lots of different kinds of prejudice that are challenged at different points in the play. Lots of very casual prejudices that we wouldn't have even, that maybe those characters wouldn't have even thought of as racism or prejudice in those ways. And I think that's what's really interesting about the play. And I think that from Juror 8's perspective, it's funny, when I first played it, I played it much more, I think, straightforwardly. If there's reasonable doubt, we have to acquit. So it was just a simple fact, and there is reasonable doubt, therefore we have to acquit. This time when I came to play it, I felt much more that Juror 8 was much more front-footed about it, that he was quite political about it, that he wants to get this kid off. Because actually, there is reasonable doubt, but also, I don't think we should be burning someone in a chair as a state. And I think he believes that. It's something that I believe personally as well. But I think that Juror 8 believes that. And I think there's enough evidence in the text to see that. So I think this time around, I'm playing much more, I wouldn't say like overtly political, but more front-footed about what he believes, So maybe stronger in certain ways in his conviction, rather than this gentle sort of questioning I remember thinking of him as the first time around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I guess do you think there's reason then to come back to a role, say 9-10 years on? Because I guess as a nation, as a planet, we've been through so much in the last 10 years.
So much
is
change.
That perhaps what's changed? You know,
I think
changed
so, yeah.
that character.
I think so. And I mean, there are lots of things that are different now. I mean, we have a fantastic black actor in the cast called Samaj Hamilton, and there's no overt reason for him to be black. It just kind of works, and that was the decision that was made with the company this time around, and it just works really well. But what it does is suddenly all those arguments go whoop. The stakes just go so much higher, and that's really fun to reapproach this time around and think, right, okay, so are you not aware of what you're saying now? You know, to some of these guys that come out with.
So still 17 years on, this piece has newfound relevance, or even just the relevance is still relevant to today. An old black and white film, but played out on stage, is still for the people to come to today.
Yeah.
And even in this political landscape that we're finding ourselves living in now, it's still very relevant.
Yeah.
I was saying to Michael that the writing is just top notch. It
is, and it's nuanced. You know,
Yes.
I mean, in my character at the end, at one point says, you know, it's not easy to keep personal prejudice out of something like this, and he's in a way he's throwing a lifeline to the kind of overt racist in the room, who played by Gray O'Brien, and it's sort of a little bit of an appease. He's not quite forgiving him, but he's saying, you know, it is human. We all have aspects of that within us, but unless you're trying to battle that in yourself, then you're really not seeing things clearly, you know. And I think that's quite a nuanced, subtle point. That it's not one thing or another. It's not black or white. It's we need to keep talking, you know. Opposite divides, you know.
100%. I mean, like I said, that's the conversations that we're having more of now, and especially you know, since COVID and George Floyd and all of that, that's opened up that conversation to a wider, you know, like everybody that is anybody is speaking up. Yeah. Well, you know, should be, and you know, silence is actually violence. It's in some places, and for some people, not speaking up and just saying, well, you know. But that's your character is doing that. Yeah. Your character is challenging. And how close to you did kind of hint that there's some aspects that is similar to your thoughts, but how close to this character
I'm very close, I think, actually. I mean, funnily enough, I trained as an artist, so I mean, drawing is second nature to me. I draw all the time and paint a bit, and so that's quite close. I mean, I'm not fastidious like an architect would have to be, I would imagine. I would have to learn, and I have to be a lot more rigid and structured than I am. I'm quite a messy kind of person and an artist.
Yeah, I was about to say an artist. Yeah.
But I certainly in sense of graphic expression, I've got a real affinity with him. Funnily enough, I used to know a lot of architects that were part of my friendship group. And there was something particular about them, about their sense of design. I like great design, and so that's something that I think I would have in common with Juror 8. I would imagine that his apartment in New York is quite minimally furnished and quite tastefully done. He wears quite a nice linen suit, you know, he's got quite a jazzy bebop tie and everything. And I would imagine that his lifestyle is very designed. I quite like that myself. Yeah. I love jazz, and so there's lots of things like that we would key into. And as I said earlier, I mean, you know, we in this country, we gave up the death penalty a long time ago, and however many people rattle their cage saying we should bring it back, I think it's a long way off, and I hope so. But so it's not something that I agree with, and but it's still going on in America, and it's still going on in many countries all across the world. And I just think, you know, how can a state shouldn't be doing that? So I share that with him, and I really think that, cheers, Dodger. I really think that Juror 8 believes that this is 1957, and I think, I'm not sure about the history of this, but I'm sure probably New York State was probably one of the first states that didn't have the death penalty.
Yeah.
But I don't know when that happened.
Yeah.
But I would have thought that being a New Yorker, being a kind of liberal New Yorker like he is, this would be something that he believes in.
Yeah, definitely.
You touched on great design from one perspective, but actually we're sat amongst a great design here. I mean, this set, I feel like I'm in New York.
It's such a great set, and to the there's some details.
Yeah.
So, Jason, I'm looking here, right, and on the table here, I've got. This is Juror number 2's notes.
Yes.
So it looks like you are actually genuinely making notes in the. Is this live?
Are some of you making notes, or some of you just drawing pictures?
Someone's drawing pictures here. But it's a castle and a hill. I don't know what's going on there, but this one's mine.
One is yours.
Oh, can we show it?
Oh yes, yeah. Sorry, So the funny thing about this is that I only use it at one point in the play. And I'm trying to sketch down very quickly what another character is saying. So they are meant to be words.
Yeah.
But because I have to finish quite quickly and keep listening and keep the eye contact, I have to do it faster than I would naturally write.
Yeah.
So I can't even read this myself. But
That's my normal writing.
There is intention for them to be words, but I've not quite succeeded. Yeah.
Love that.
And this is a bit of architectural design.
That's the L train that I'm like working out. Yeah.
I love that. I love the fact that we're literally sitting on the set and it just feels so rich. And even just the details, that we have, the details of, how I love set design. I think it's just it's just fascinating.
It's very simple. I mean, this revolve is just such a simple idea, but it works so well.
And it's such a it's
Except
one
when
of the
squeaks.
Yeah, does it squeak?
Sometimes.
No way.
Yeah.
Yes, right. That simple revolve is what a lot of audience members talk about. And I know I've got a friend of mine who's she was like, I've already got my ticket, and I'm going to sit in the stalls because I want to fight. I want to see when that moves, when that table revolves.
Because we're not talking Les Mis here. It's not spinning around where everyone's sort of.
No. It's you can, if you look at the gap, you can see it slightly. And actually, if you find yourself with 1 foot off and 1 foot on, and you're just listening, you can find yourself slowly
almost
one
in the
leg
split.
drifting away. That's the only time you notice it, really, I think. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, we're going to have to wrap up, but do you have anything you want to just share, anything you want to say before we close?
Well, just please come and see it, because I think it's a short play.
Yeah.
It's not too long. It's the perfect length, I think. Under an hour first half and 45 minutes second half.
It's perfect.
And it really doesn't stop, and it's got so many distinct and wonderful. It's a brilliant company. I'm very proud to be a member of, and it's got so many distinct characters. Some very funny, some very dark, some very interesting. But it's well worth it for that. And I've had kids as young as 9 really enjoy it, and from across the board, all different classes. So I think it's one of those plays that's pleasing for everyone. So please come.
Please come. Jason said come. No, exactly. We cannot wait. We've already got our tickets. We'll be there.
Brilliant.
In the what's it called, stalls?
In the stalls, yeah.
In the stalls. I want to sit in the stalls.
Don't sit in the front row because you'll put me off.
Oh, okay. But thank you so much, Jason, for joining us and for sharing with us. We really appreciate you.
No worries. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone at home for listening and watching in. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.